Ahem. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. What do you fucking dickbags want? Oh, that's right. Podcast. So sorry, terribly sorry. Welcome to the Hate Bit Podcast. I want to recommend everyone right now, right this minute, to look down below and check out our social media links. I am in the Intrepid Yell Chaos. Joining me, one of my favorite stubbly men of all time, Mr. Razor Fist.
Bad gaming is a disease. Meet the cure. Actually, I wish I could remember the opening monologue of Cobra, but yeah. Anyway, God fucking speed, folks. Let's fucking do this.
That's right, because he doesn't shop here. And the guy that learned the true meaning of family this afternoon, Alpha Omegason.
I think everybody in the comments should just tell Razor Fist to keep the beard, or the starting the beard, the Chia beard. Just keep that. You're good. The audience will agree. There you go. That's all.
It could be a whole new era of the Hate Bit Podcast. Anyway, I want to recommend you all to check us out on the Facebook, on the Twitter, all that stuff. Subscribe, you know. If you don't, well, then you're a fucking asshole. You know that.
Just before we move on, I have to say I couldn't have said I don't shop here because that's implied in today's gaming market, ladies and gentlemen. No one fucking shops here. No one fucking does. Everyone waits for a fucking Steam sale and they get it for $5.
The only one around here spending any money is Sony, but we'll talk about that shortly. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I want to remind you all to check us out, and if you have questions, comments, concerns, correspondence of any kind, please drop us a line at hatebitpodcast@gmail.com. With all that having been said, we're going to get right into the program. Sorry for keeping you waiting so long, but, you know, fuck you. What does it matter? I want to talk about something that's very interesting. Masaya Nakamura, founder of Namco Electronics, an amusement company, passed away apparently a week ago, and they're just now telling us. I think it was Razor Fist. Every time someone dies, Razor Fist is not around, and then after the news breaks, he shows up on Twitter. Just, you know,
it was creepy as shit. Did you guys? Did either of you guys catch my Deus Ex stream last night?
No, we were watching wrestling.
Okay, all right, because Royal Rumble. Well, okay. So the fucking Deus Ex stream, there was some freaky shit going on while I was playing this goddamn thing. The fucking game, I think, became self-aware. I started predicting what was going to happen later in the game. I'm walking along, and I'm trying to figure out the controls, right? And they switched around the run and the throw grenade buttons. And so I wind up throwing a grenade in the middle of a crowded street, and fucking everybody goes apeshit, right? Well, later on in dialogue, I'm talking to fucking Pritchard, and Pritchard's like, "What are you going to do, Jensen? Throw a grenade in the middle of the street?" What the fuck was that? And there were like one or two other instances that were exactly like that over the course of the same fucking stream. So I think the I am Nostradamus meme is officially, I think it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy, no pun intended.
I'd like to think that our role-playing games are becoming that much more immersive, where even the most fucked up instances, like if you have trouble with the camera, just trying to move it and shit, and be like, "Are you having trouble seeing?" It just seems like there's something wrong. Like, do you need glasses? I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Jesus.
That could happen. But still, so he's been dead for a week? Really?
Yeah. He's been dead. Yeah. The nice people at Yahoo News, you know, because they're just, you know, they always know what's going on, you know, especially when it comes to fucking video games. You know, they're just the heavyweight champs. But
who were they sold to this week?
Well, I had him last week for a little while. But that's, you know, there was a hostile takeover, and that's not important.
It's like Spider-Man. Everyone gets one.
Everybody gets to own Yahoo at least once. Donald Trump had it by accident, I heard. Anyway, but yeah, Masaya Nakamura, credited earlier today as the father of Pac-Man, and I got real nervous and realized that Yahoo killed off Iwatani, who is not that old, and then they brought him back to life and said, "Oh no, wait, Nakamura, the founder of Namco, back in 1955, back when all of your parents were only existed on the chemical level." Well, anyway, he passed away, and he was old. He died, and
the motherfucker was 91.
91 years old, which I understand is middle age for Japanese.
I don't know. If you watch enough anime, when they hit 21, they're middle-aged.
And everyone's gonna talk about Pac-Man, but for me, like the real innovation that Nakamura brought to the table was Galaxian, because that was the first game to use like more than one color in the sprites.
That was the first game that entertained the notion that the sky had stars in it.
It's true. And how many games ripped that off after that fucking?
Every single game.
All we can have is a black background. What if we put these little white dots at random intervals? You know what I mean? Genius! That'll be every game throughout the 1980s.
Well, if you knew anything about the Japanese sky in the 1970s before catalytic converters, they probably were just plain black, you know.
Yeah.
I was giving people so much shit on Twitter because I'm like, he didn't create Pac-Man, but so many of the headlines were misleading and saying that. I'm like, so I'm getting pissed off about this. A couple people are like, did you even bother to read the article? I'm like, look at the fucking headline. Look at that. Okay, if you have an article and the title is misrepresenting the content of the article, that's clickbait and you fucked up. I don't give a shit if it says something different, because if it does that, that means that your journalistic integrity is fucking nothing. So, and seeing that, and like, and even like right now, it's on IGN. It was on stupid fucking Yahoo. I expect less from Yahoo. That says a lot. And I'm just like, come the fuck on,
Polygon's the best because they know they're full of shit. The whole article they're talking about, oh, he launched this, he launched that, he did this. They go like 9 miles out of their way to say he didn't create it. And then in the very last paragraph, the very last one right before the end, they're like, oh, hey, by the way, Iwatari created Pac-Man. So long, folks. We're out. You know what I mean? Jesus fucking Christ.
In the interest of full disclosure.
Yeah,
it's the best shit ever.
It is. It's like a fast talking snake oil salesman at the end of the erectile dysfunction commercials. You know, it's like not available in all states. Boners may not apply. Yeah.
Like it's fucking terrible. That many fucking fluff pieces. You might as well just consider it like insulation. Like, so you thought this was a good fucking idea, and then you have your bullshit fucking disclaimer, which, you know, is there for what? So you don't look like a piece of shit. No, you're still a piece of shit. You're still fucking festering.
Yeah,
like it just kills me. But the crazy part about it is this is a dude's name that most people don't know all that well, but he was really fucking important to early gaming. And I mean, when it came to like the actual arcade scene, that's where he was innovating at.
Namco is not a company that a lot of people talk about now, honestly. Even though they still release games and those games still sell, it's not like they're obscure. It's just odd, you know. Everyone is willing to talk about Sega and of course Nintendo and shit like that. Namco was at least as important as those motherfuckers back in the 80s, especially. And they're still, somehow, they haven't quite gone full Konami yet and completely shit the bed. They're still releasing, you know, people are looking forward to Tekken over the next year or so forth. You know, they're actually making games that people actually are willing to pay hard currency for.
Well, then the other thing is they're one half of Bandai Namco, which is a great big media company. And if you don't know that, they are fucking Power Rangers. That fucking series that won't go away, period. And this is what strikes me as interesting, is the video game journalists who come up with all these obscure names for whatever reason, whoever working on this thing, they couldn't say Namco founder. Like, to me, Namco founder, that's a much higher marquee value than fucking Pac-Man. What is Pac-Man? Pac-Man's some guy on mobile now. So that's interesting to me that they went that route.
Well, that's because look at what Razorfist said earlier. The namesake of Namco doesn't get tossed around quite like, you know, the Nintendos and Segas. Yeah, it doesn't. That's not to say that it's somehow magically.
I would argue that has more to do with logos, but we can discuss that another time.
Well, I mean, look, this is a company that, I mean, we got Tekken 7 coming out. I am actually looking forward to Tekken 7 because it looks really fucking good. And it's been a while since I sat down and was like, I'm going to play a fighting game as soon as it comes out. And this is one of those ones I got a lot of friends who are also interested, so it makes me give a shit. But they put out the Tales RPGs. I look forward to all of them every single time that they're putting one out, and they just keep continuously pumping them out. So I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm all on board with that.
I wish they would stop shitting up Soul Calibur, though. Jesus Christ. You know, that franchise is pretty much dead now. They rammed it so fucking far into the ground, and that's a shame because it was damn good for a while.
I feel like with Soul Calibur, they were just putting out too many.
Yeah.
Too quickly. And they're suddenly, like, the games didn't really differentiate from one another, and then you have to start looking at quality control. And then
fucking 5 happened and too much changed at once. And it was like, what the fuck is this? Now, of course, the big problem, I don't know how they fucking straddled this tightrope, but they've somehow managed to find a way. None of the games really changed from one another in terms of, you know, functionality and so forth. There was never any major gameplay elements that I can remember being added, like, oh, we have this new gimmicky game mechanic. There was never any of that. But the one thing Namco could not do is leave the fucking movesets alone. They could not, for the life of you, could tie their fucking hands behind their back. They would find a way. They would reprogram the fucking movesets mentally. I have no goddamn idea, but you're never going to establish a viable fighting game franchise if you're constantly changing the movesets that much.
Oh, yeah.
From game to game, Mitsurugi did not play the fucking same, which is bullshit because you can't. Why do you think Street Fighter works? Because, man, quarter circle forward in punch, it's fucking the fireball. You know, the goddamn Shoryuken motion, everyone has it embedded in their brain. You're never going to have that if you're constantly fucking updating the movesets.
Oh, yeah, dude, there's... Mitsurugi's a good example. One that I feel just... It got so out of control, it was like a different character, was Raphael. Whenever I saw his moves, I was just like, oh, okay. And I'm trying. Keep in mind, he was. I mean, people can be like, "Oh, he's cheeseball." I don't give a fuck. He's awesome as shit.
He is badass.
But and I just liked him because I was like, you know, I like him. I can keep a character on the fucking ground permanently. They won't get up. If I knock you down once, that's pretty much it. But they change shit up so often with them. I'm just like, please stop. I'll give you an extra $1 to just stop that.
It's the same shit to Ivy. You know, I'm more of an Ivy player. And oh my fucking God, they could not leave her alone. They would not leave her the fuck alone. And the worst part still is you'd play like 3. 3 wasn't that different from 2. But, like, really good example, Ivy had a couple really big, huge damage throws in number 2, which was a little broken. I can understand them wanting to balance that. But in 3, they didn't even balance them. They do just about the same amount of damage, but they just changed the inputs. She has the same basic goddamn moveset. They just changed the inputs for some reason. Oh, now you have to push this random conglomeration of fucking bullshit buttons. It was nonsense. You can't design games that way. And I think Namco learned that progressively over the course of Soul Calibur. Like, 4 did well, I think mainly because of the crossover with Star Wars and shit. But 5 would absolutely shit the bed. And I think a lot of that had to do with it was the cumulative effect of changing the game, you know, just tweaking every single character until the point where now you've removed half of the cast and they don't play the same. The few that are still there don't play the goddamn same. So you've got very little left to market to the hardcore Soul Calibur fanboys, of which I used to be one. So,
it's one of those things. I just hope. There's always hope, because it's not like we're talking about a completely incompetent development team. We know that they know what the fuck they're doing. It's just that they get stupid fucking ideas.
We're gonna learn a lot from Tekken, the new Tekken. If Tekken gets its shit right, because the last one was a little but if Tekken gets its shit right this time, there might be hope for Soul Calibur and Namco in general.
I mean, Namco has a shit ton of IPs under their belt, a lot of which they don't use, admittedly, and they just sit there and they waste away. I mean, the last time that they used Pac-Man on a fucking console is was it the Pac-Man and the Ghost Show? Fuck, I've actually got it over here. Hold on. Pac-Man and the Pac-Man: The Ghostly Adventures.
The Ghostly Adventures.
So little kids show they made into a platforming game. If you played Pac-Man World, then you already know what to expect. But the Pac-Man World games were really, really good platforming games. They were just fun. They weren't doing anything different, but they weren't trying to. They were just fun-ass games. Ghostly Adventure, same exact thing, except for with obnoxious voice acting because of the show. And just more of the same. But that was the last time they did anything with it, and I heard 0 fucking people chirp about it. 0. Like, not a single motherfucker. Maybe it's because of the tie-in to the show, but at the same point, I don't think most people even know what the fuck it is that are above the age of 10.
Yeah.
So that, and the only reason I do, because I'm a fucking dad and uncle, so I know about that shit, and I've had to have it on my television. It is horrible, by the way. I do not like it. It is a bad show. Stupid shit. Needs to be punched. I feel bad because now this dude dies, and we're just like, hey, you know what, Namco, get your shit together, bitch. The entire time. I love you, Namco. I feel like, you've earned some of the bruises on your face.
They have, and I think the big problem was, and I don't know how much of a role this guy had in that. He was only. It says in all the articles I read that he was sort of relegated to an emeritus position in the last several years. Probably because of his age. You don't let grandpa fuck with the clicker once he's, eating his own shit and he's got fucking dementia and whatnot.
What the fuck goes on in your family? Jesus
I know, right?
Christ, man.
But anyways, like fucking I think their main problem is of the culture. It's sort of look, a lot of Japanese game companies have started to look more toward the West. Namco, not so fucking much. They still don't really have the lines of communication open to their audience. Like, Namco just shits their games out, and it's like, you're going to like it or you're not going to like it, and we don't really give a fuck. You know what I mean? We really don't give a fuck. Oh, that's the other one they're coming out with is fucking Ace Combat 7.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to mention, because they got it with for PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
And even if you're not into VR, the idea of a straight up fucking sim game where you're flying around in a jet and then you got a VR headset on, that sounds kind of cool. Like, that's some shit I actually want to try out. And I'm a pretty big fan of the Ace Combat series. I mean, I've been playing them since Air Combat.
Yeah.
Air Combat. So, and Ace Combat 2 is one of my favorite video game soundtracks. Huh?
They're a blast because they kind of take the best elements of Sims and the best elements of like a traditional like Afterburner style arcade, flying game. They kind of mix those two things. It's sort of like the Star Fox with a little bit more of a sim twist.
Oh yeah.
Idea.
Well,
That's what you're doing.
I won't say that they are shallow sim games, but they're not nearly as deep as many other ones out there. They're accessible sims. That's probably the best way to go and describe it. And for some people out there, you're going to have your extremes and your dedicated hardcores who are like, yeah, not hardcore enough. But I'd rather something be accessible than incapable of getting an audience outside of a small little fucking circle that's tight-knit.
Flight sims are one of those genres where if you're honestly clinging to the idea of it being hardcore, that like, I didn't have to call flight control and spend 5 minutes with fucking codes and shit. I didn't have to sit with the dash and hit 90 buttons in rapid succession like Han Solo on bath salts. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, it's accessible. You turn on your fucking plane and you get up there and you shoot down some goddamn MiGs. End of story, right?
Can you imagine, like, you're sitting there and you're playing like the equivalent of a 1930s telephone operator trying to go and do all this shit just to make sure that you don't go and crash and burn into a fucking mountain ridge. Like, just sitting there crashing along things.
That's why the world has Steel Battalion.
Yeah, that game's badass. But anyways, no, and that's what a simulator game is. I'm a big flight sim nerd, like big time. I almost went into the Air Force. But like fucking hardcore flight sim guy. But most of the time you're sitting around waiting for your clearance to leave the fucking tarmac and you're fucking sitting there like, okay, where's my codes? You literally have a binder that comes with this goddamn game. You got to know There's an actual protocol that you have to follow, and you actually have to get on, especially on modern flight sims. You know, you have a microphone, and you actually have to talk with mission control. There's like a simulated voice you have to interact with and shit, and it's terrible, by the way, depending on the sim. But I mean, it's pretty fucking in-depth. You don't want to be fucking around with that nonsense. You just want to get up there and shoot some goddamn missiles.
Dude, I can say this flat out. One, I appreciate anybody who's like their nerd cred goes as deep as yours with having that kind of on hands experience and knowledge that most motherfuckers are like, what? No, the only time I've ever flown shit was Star Fox, or like I jacked a jet or a helicopter in Grand Theft Auto 5, and that was but with Ace Combat, when I was a kid, if I had to do all that shit, first fucking 10 minutes would have been bored to fucking tears, shut that shit the fuck off, and went on to something else. So Ace Combat is a lot better. And I mean, you figure this is Ace Combat 7. The last one was on fucking 360 that had that sweet fucking flight stick. And I played the shit out of that one.
Well, yeah, no, the last one was Assault Horizon, and it was ass. It was a plate of ass.
I'm talking about numbered ones. I don't consider all the other fucking AIDS infected ones that they put out, and I'm like, that's not a thing.
But yes,
I just worry about the ones that they honestly care about.
6 was the shit. It was ridiculous, but it was the shit. It was great.
Oh, dude, when I brought that shit home, because I got it for fucking super cheap, like the whole fucking kit and caboodle, set that up, and we had to rearrange the living room so that you could get like a decent, like, oh yeah, this will work. And everybody kept sitting in. Like when you have a group of people coming down with like 6-packs in hand, and then they see like a flight stick set up and everybody huddled around, they're like, what the fuck is this? And be like, dude, check this shit out. They have no idea, man. They have no idea. The most that they ever had, a fucking like 360 or a DualShock in their hand. That's fucking all. Or an NES Zapper. This blew their fucking minds.
Yeah. And you know what blows my mind is I went back and played Ace Combat 6 recently. That game still looks pretty fucking amazing. The graphics hold up. The graphics on all the Ace Combat games, like the later kind of, after like 3, 4, whatever, like that whole region, 3, 4, 5, 6, they really got good with the graphics. Like just some really stunning visuals. And you can go back and play a lot of the PS2 ones and they still look pretty fucking passable and good. Namco's really on top of their shit with the visuals.
You know, okay, this is something we had talked about when we were discussing everything about the Nintendo Switch. So, considering that we're able to go and take the controllers off the side and we can use them to go and shoot shit and do all the other crap, I would like to see Namco do a return to form. And because it'd be so easy on a system like the Nintendo Switch, give me another proper Time Crisis game. I know that they're still pumping them out because I saw, I don't know, a Time Crisis 5 or 6 or whatever the fuck it is in an arcade. But I had seen that and I was like, holy shit, this. I love on-rail shooters and Time Crisis. There was 2 different types of crowds that you were running into. They were either playing Virtua Cop or Time Crisis. I was playing.
Wait, where did you run into people who actually like Virtua Cop?
Dude, people like Virtua Cop.
Well, yeah, I like Virtua Cop, and nobody else likes Virtua Cop. Where did you find other people? Explain yourself.
I used to waste the shit out of some quarters on that game. Jesus.
See, look, I love, like, I'm not saying I don't love Virtua Cop, but I didn't have a Saturn at the time, so, you know, I didn't have, like, Virtua Cop 1 and 2 at home. I had Time Crisis 1 and Project Titan at my house. That's what the fuck I had, and Time Crisis 1 is way cheesier than all the Virtual Cop games, so I was delighted to no end. I was like, oh, this is wonderful. It's like, oh, foo. Playing this shit out of it and just getting fucking giggles because everything was just so bad, but so bad that it was good. So, and you already should know that on this podcast, things that are so bad that they're good, this is a theme of ours. So it's blame 80s children for that. Yeah, that's more Time Crisis. I'd like that. I heart that series.
And blame 90s kids for everything else.
and 2000s kids, they don't count. They're just lost souls. Poor things. Poor things. I feel like they need hugs. But I mean,
Don't
The
hug 'em,
dude
they're all
fucking
sticky.
passed away at the age of 91 and had a hell of a legacy because he helped make an empire that's still going strong, that's pumping out action figures right now and statues and busts and plushies and shit. They've got arcades, they've got restaurants, they've got TV shows, they've got
You think they might make a little bit of money on this Power Rangers movie? Just a little bit? Just a smidge?
Dude, no joke. I was expecting that fucking trailer to be way worse.
Yeah.
I was sitting there, I'm like, go on, just give me shit. I'm waiting for it. And I watched it, I was just like, you know what? Not bad. Not
It
fucking
seemed all
bad
right.
at all.
I gotta say, it was okay. Have you played the game?
Wait, which game?
There's a new game, I guess. There's a new fucking Power Rangers game.
Let's
heard
jump on
this.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, the last Power Rangers game I played was one of the fucking fighting. Oh wait, no, it was a beat 'em up on PS2 that I got in a pawn shop for $1, and I played it out of like morbid curiosity. It was budget as fuck, but it was fun. It was like a bunch of Red Rangers on the cover. I can't remember it, but it was like multiple eras of Power Rangers and shit, like Light Force and Zeo and Mighty Morphin and all the other fucking ones I can't remember because I only gave a shit so much. So, but still, the new Power Rangers movie? No, dude, I'd like to see that. Will I rush out to the theaters to watch it? No, I'll wait for that shit to like come out on Blu-ray or something. And
You're gonna watch that shit on Showtime or something, you know.
Power Rangers Mega Battle?
Is that the PS2 game? Or wait, or you're talking about the new one?
New one. Yeah.
Power
Rangers Mega Battle, I think is the name of it.
What, is it a beat 'em up?
I'm not getting that from this. I don't know. But anyways, I had a friend who was playing it and said it was pretty good.
See, now I have to go and look this shit up while we're live doing.
Yeah, great timing, fabulous. Would you like me to stand here and dance a jig?
I mean, if you want.
Alpha Omega Sin searching on his phone, searching just for you. While you're doing that, as a matter of fact, we can come back. Razorfist, you were going to cut a big promo about Deus Ex because Square Enix spent how much to get a hold of what?
Do we have a final monetary figure?
I was wondering if you had, because I can't find one.
Yeah. So Square Enix wanted some Marvel dollars. So they went out and bought the Marvel license because that worked out so well for EA. And they apparently now have the right to make mediocre Avengers games. So huzzah! I'm really fucking excited about this. It's gonna be fantastic. Well, look, that would have been fine. Whatever. It would have been interesting to see. Like, it's hilarious. Everyone's kind of watching this, like, oh my goodness, like now it's Square Enix that have the actual their grubby little Japanese digits all over the Marvel license and so forth. It's not like with EA. It's like, really? Like, EA's made a lot of really great games too. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It seems like
it's Activision. Activision had the Marvel license, didn't they?
Activision did, but EA did too.
What the fuck were they putting out?
For a little while, I'd have to look it up. But anyways, yeah. Activision. I think Activision had it most recently, or
I just like I know that I've seen Activision on a lot of shit, but I've also seen like last generation Sega put out Iron Man games, and they also put out the Captain America game, I think.
Yeah, and before that, they let Konami do some shit with it in the 90s, and whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
They've played hot potato with the goddamn license, and pretty much the only people to do anything goddamn decent with it are THQ with the Punisher game, which was really badass, and fucking Konami in the 90s with some of the arcade shit. You know, Captain America and the Avengers was great, and X-Men was incredible and a classic. And
well, Sega, didn't they actually develop the some of the X-Men games back on the Genesis?
Sega did Spider-Man the video game in arcade, and that's a delightfully bland game.
And we're passing right over Capcom. What the fuck? Capcom with goddamn Marvel versus Capcom and fucking X-Men Children of the Atom and X-Men Mutant Apocalypse and shit. So, but yeah, there was definitely a lot of people who have owned this license. But I just don't understand. It's fucking okay. It's Square Enix. Am I the only one who's been paying attention to what Square Enix has been doing over the last 10 fucking years?
Well, I have, and I also know that grubby little mitts come from both sides of the Pacific. I know that. You know that.
This is true.
You know, no matter what the case might be. But I understand that the money they spent may have threatened the future of Deus Ex. Is that not true?
And that's the issue, really, is in order to, I assume they're transferring resources from Eidos Montreal in particular, which honestly has been the lone bright spot for Square Enix over the last several years. Thief 4 very much being an exception to that rule. But I just don't understand. I don't know if they want to transfer the team over to the Avengers team or what the fuck, but the long story short is they have given sort of tacit confirmation that they're done with Deus Ex, basically. It's either on hold indefinitely or it's done entirely, which is abject fucking horseshit. You sold millions of units with this goddamn series, both fucking games. I don't know if Mankind Divided what the final numbers were on that, but I'm sure it wasn't a fucking obscure title that didn't sell any, you know?
Well, let's remember,
it doesn't help that they didn't market this fucking thing. It just sort of came out. You know,
let's remember this is the same company that gave a pink slip over to the dev team who made Sleeping Dogs because the several million that they sold wasn't millions enough for a brand new fucking IP.
Which is, and can we just say that? The fucking hypocrisy of Square Enix. You mean to tell me you leave a gaggle of fucking pricks in a room for 15 years to work on goddamn Final Fantasy 15. You throw a checkbook at them, they waste hundreds of millions of fucking dollars.
Yep.
They take forever to put this piece of shit out. You wind up handing it over to a different team, so they wind up making the version we played, which is, I'm blown away. I'm about to release a review of Final Fantasy 15. I'm blown away that version of the game was created in like fucking 2 years, 3 years, or whatever the fuck. That blows my goddamn mind. But you basically just let these people fuck around, waste your money, piss your goddamn money away, and fucking, but if over in the United States or off in Canada, your Western development studios spend more than $15, it's like, holy shit, they're off the goddamn reservation. We got to cancel their fucking franchise, and they're done. We're going to close the studio.
They canceled fucking the Blood Omen Legacy of Kain game that they had coming out, which... Yeah. The footage for that, we're not talking about a game early in development. We're talking about something that was far as fuck along, and I'm a die-hard Legacy of Kain fan. I even suffered through Blood Omen 2 just because I fucking love that series that goddamn much. And that I was excited for. I saw that footage, and I'm like, why the fuck did you stop this? And you killed off Sleeping Dogs, you killed off this, you've got IPs that you acquired through getting Core and IDOS and shit that you're sitting on that you won't spend money on, but you're expecting other development studios to come up with their own version of it, to then come to you, which is an interesting concept, but just shows that you have little faith in these studios.
Yeah.
And they come to you, and then you say whether or not, yeah, we'll throw some cash at that, or no, we're not going to do that. Yet Final Fantasy 13, which was shit, and then a sequel, which was shit, and its sequel, which was shit, and it continuously sold less, but you threw more money at that.
Yeah, just continue to chuck money. And how many hundreds of millions did they piss away on the original launch version of Final Fantasy 14? You rebuilt an entire MMO from the ground up. You built an MMO, which is historically one of the most expensive kinds of games to develop. And you did it twice. That was in fucking Japan. That wasn't the West. That wasn't fucking Eidos. That was on you, motherfucker. And what happens when you take quarterly losses? They took an annual loss that year. Who did they blame? The fucking Western studio. What? You wasted hundreds of millions on Final Fantasy 14. It's like they don't want Final Fantasy to have a black eye, so they just fucking push it all onto the Western studio.
Well, yeah, that's why they had him, I'm sure there's a lot of people who had one more kid just to have someone to blame. Who broke the lamp? It was probably that fucking kid. We didn't even want him.
It's just odd to think, though, because, I mean, okay, say what you will about IDOS during the late 90s, early 2000s, because there was a lot of questionable shit, which is why they were in the state that they were. But when they got acquired by Square Enix, the shit that they were pumping out was top tier. Just all over the place, top tier. Yeah. Sure, we do get a teeth every so often. But I mean, we're talking about a company that went and acquired them. And Square Enix, in my opinion, has been on a big fucking upswing, especially by comparison to the entirety of last generation, which was...
Not only that, but like they were starting to publish little games that were pretty good. I mean, you may have heard of a little title called Batman Arkham Asylum. You know, just a slight success, a little bit, just a smidge. You know, they were working with third-party partners to kind of do that, and then Square Enix comes along and kind of shits that all up. But I mean, you look at that run they had from like 2008 to whenever the fuck they were acquired. Actually, I think it was... Let's put it a little further back than that. It'd probably be like 2008, 2011, 2012. And you got fucking Batman Arkham Asylum, and you got the Tomb Raider reboot, and you got Deus Ex Human Revolution. And I mean, they had a really good run of games. And it feels like they never kind of get credit for that. The Japanese studio gets a pass whenever they fuck up. And they have fucked up monumentally in the last several years. I mean, big fucking time. Even Final Fantasy 15, which is doing very well for them, they're still saying it hasn't broke even because of how much money they spend. And that's not surprising after fucking 11 years.
With that game, it's so weird because playing through FF15, especially after playing 13, unfortunately, playing 13, it's night and day because there's nothing alike.
Wait, hold on. Playing 13? You mean watching? Is what you?
Well, I did hold the analog stick upward sometimes, and shit did happen on screen. So it was kind of like fucking around with the remote on, like when you're watching a Blu-ray or some shit. Same fucking premise, just a lot more exhausting somehow. Mostly of patience, and it's strange to me that this company in general has managed to take one of their most coveted franchises and last generation had like damn near murdered it as if they were pissed off at it. I mean, we were talking about it having like a black eye. This shit looked like it was missing digits and bloodied up in a fucking alleyway because it owed the wrong people. And now all of a sudden they're trying to fucking resuscitate it. And, you know, hey, I'm fucking glad. But my hopes with what you're talking about is right now they are going to be taking key people that they think will be helpful from the Deus Ex team and moving them over, which will go in slow progress or just temporarily halt it. Because if they outright just decide, yeah, it didn't sell like millions on day one, so that's not good enough, and that means automatically that it's bad, then you're gonna lose fans more than anything else. Yeah, it's a fucking waste. And I hope it's not the case, because I'll tell you this, I'll take a Deus Ex game over an Avengers game pretty much any day of the week.
Well, especially because of, I mean, look at the quality of so many of the licensed Marvel games. I mean, what have been our recent offerings in the Marvel catalog? Oh, let's see, Iron Man 3. You know, like Jesus Christ. Who in the fuck is gonna pick Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, fucking any of the interchangeable procession of Spider-Man games, you know, movie licensed bullshit over Deus Ex Human Revolution? If you've ever made that call, if you've ever kind of had both of those games in your hand and said, you know what, I think I'm rolling the dice and going with Spider-Man, I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to get clenched. I need you to grab a nearby stable, and I need you to blow me. What the fuck? I do not understand that. The Marvel license has been so utterly and completely beshitted over the last 10 years. You hand it off to Activision and that's going to happen. And obviously there's been one or two experiments that have worked, but for the most part, you've had to hand it off to third-party studios that have actually had a vision, and you wind up with shit like Punisher. Or you wind up with like X-Men Legends or the like.
I mean, the only thing that I'm looking forward to is the new Marvel versus Capcom and the new Spider-Man, just because we have a proper team making the Spider-Man game, and just that trailer alone, that should have me hyped. I was like, hey, that's awesome. But many of the other games, while they aren't the worst thing that I've ever played, they always reek of mediocrity. Like, in every way. It is just sprinkled on there. Like, just why? Why? Because you have something that's so fucking good, but you didn't do much with it. And I don't get that. With it going into the hands of Square Enix, I don't know what development teams that they have lined up to work on any of the fucking properties, because I was just finding out about this shit during this podcast.
Yeah.
So they have so many fucking dev studios over there. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think, man, it'd be awesome to get like a proper superhero RPG going, which, I mean, we've kind of had that in a Baldur's Gate style way with past, Marvel games, but I mean, just like a AAA caliber one. That's what I want. It'd be something cool, but I don't see it happening. So,
yeah, no, I think long story short, they're just pretty much excited because it's not Activision, it's not EA, and they're like, oh, Square Enix, they made a good thing in 2001. Let's roll the dice on them.
I mean, it's mainly just it's hopes. And I can't even say empty promises because nobody's promised anything. It's just, hey, we got something, and they're just like, yeah. Is it going to be good? Yeah. Wait, I'm just saying it over and over. Fuck it. So there's that. Let's just hope that the series isn't fucking done.
Well, money management has never really been their issue, or actually, I should say their strong suit. But money issues aside, all right, I'm not even going to make one of these smooth transitions. Sony lost a bunch of fucking money.
No, that is actually a very appropriate transition between Square Enix making a shitload of money.
I honestly think that was pretty smooth.
Well, thank you. But Sony Pictures takes just over a $1 billion loss and is now cleaning house. I was under the impression that Sony Pictures was up for sale, but it doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Razorfist, you had is it the CEO that they're kicking out?
Yeah, it's not just that Sony lost $1 billion or more, actually, a little bit more than $1 billion. They're also replacing their fucking CEO. And they're apparently restructuring their entire sort of model going forward. They had like a 3-point explanation of all the shit they're going to do. Like, let me actually read this marketeering bullshit. As we announced recently, we will be spending more time on the studio lot over the next several weeks, focused on 2 main priorities. 1, naming and transitioning to a new CEO of Sony Pictures, hopefully not one with fucking brain damage. And 2, building on the turnaround efforts currently underway at the studio. So they were already trying to turn this bullshit around, and then they wind up taking a $1 billion loss. It sounds like, to me, they were trying to do shit like, I don't know, Ghostbusters, in an effort to kind of court the young millennial audience or try and market to a different crowd or something, and they wound up completely and utterly shitting the bed.
Now, something to point out, which we have at great lengths and to much joy have discussed how multiple different avenues of entertainment have attempted to go after these extremely loud fucking bitchy pieces of shit. And they're like, yeah, that's a market that we want to go to because we want to go and do things in their favor. And it never fucking works. When you do it with games, they flop. When you do it with comics, they fucking flop. When you do it with movies, they flop. And guess what? You read between the fucking lines. I don't need to be all that clever. It's tried. It's true. And guess what? It's a fucking classic. God.
Yeah, shit, absolutely. Well, take it this way. In comics, all comics flop nowadays. It's just a matter of what gets positively reviewed by Newsarama. And the hips... No, seriously, the hipsterific comics that are marketed to the Tumblr twats, they're always goddamn gonna get the high reviews. Whatever Mark Waid touches is goddamn gold. Oh, what's that? Fucking Jughead is a fucking multi-sexual tranny who identifies as a goddamn attack helicopter. Congratulations, comic of the decade.
Dude, when you shared that on Twitter, I looked at it and I'm like, that's an Archie comic. All right, so I click on it. Keep in mind, Razor Fist went and he he went and tweeted this out. So I went to see the cancer firsthand because I don't value my eyeballs. So I'm looking at this, and the entire thing, like, it's not even pandering. It's just pants shittingly pandering. You're looking at it, and he's just like, yeah, you don't realize how tough it is considering that you're heterosexual. See, myself as a homosexual, I have a lot of trouble. Do you see all these guys with the rippling muscles? Oh yeah, do you see all that? Oh man, it's so tough for me being in high school and wanting to suck dick. I was just like, calm the fuck down. Like, I don't look, there was nothing, they were saying nothing other than, hey, check it out. We're progressive because he's gay as fuck. Not even like slightly gay. I mean, he is gay as he's aggressively fucking gay. He's gonna take his stupid little fucking Burger King hat and he's gonna stick it in 3 different assholes all at the same time.
No, it's great. It's even better when you get to people's reactions to the, like, they just, okay, CW Network. The reason I was reading this comic is because I wanted to familiarize myself. I want to do a rant about this, but the whole thing that they're doing is the CW Network recently started a show called Riverdale, which is like a grim, dark adaptation of Archie comics. I'm not making this shit up. There's apparently like a really rapey subplot between a teacher and Archie. Like, there's just some weird fucking shit. But apparently,
wait. But I don't want to cut you off. But a rapey subplot, so like something that would be on the Lifetime Network, or
no, not because Archie's not the rapist. No.
Oh, I see.
No, it's like a hot for teacher type thing.
Ah.
Yeah, and
this is on television.
Nobody's pissed about that. Everyone's pissed about the fact that Jughead is no longer, I didn't realize he was a member, but apparently he is no longer a member of the, and I quote, asexual community.
They have that?
I think they call it the AV Club. No, fucking... The asexual.
That's the asexual society. Those are the people.
Here, folks, I'm gonna give you a little tip here. The problem with having an asexual community is it's only gonna last one fucking generation. There's your fucking problem, pal.
But I want to point out that, like, okay, so this is the point that we're at. Like, this is where fandom is right now. There is no concern or interest whatsoever in the characters, in the writing, in the plots, in the action, into anything at all. It's just, well, I want you to pander to groups X, Y, and Z, or AAV in this particular instance. So pander to that group, that would be splendid. They don't give a shit. Like, well, he needs to be gay. Okay, now he needs to be gay, and he also needs to be, like, Mexican. Okay, now he's gay and Mexican. Oh, well, that's not good enough. What does he identify as? Well, shit. It depends. Like, how many building blocks are nearby? What color are the building block? Like, that's what they care about, and nothing else. I'm like, stop. Your content does not need to represent a bunch of shit out there. It needs to be entertaining. Let the writers do what they want, but they're pandering to these fuckwits.
Well, not only that, they're spending money on licenses to pander to fuckwits. They could have saved so much money by just making gay Mexican show and putting it on TV, and people said, "Man, this is goddamn awful."
Yeah,
and
but
yes, we know you're right. It's goddamn awful. But the thing about this being goddamn awful is this was cheaper than that other goddamn awful.
I think we already had it. It was called Lucha Underground.
Oh dear. Well,
no, I'm just fucking around. That Lucha Underground is badass. But anyway,
I was about to agree with you. So it goes to show we're somewhere.
By the way, the whole like. Archie comics being dark, that's something that they've been doing for a while, which I've appreciated. But typically it's like over the top and crazy and shit, and typically really fucking violent.
Yeah, like what if you want to make Archie comics grimdark? Why don't you make like Friday the 13th in Riverdale or some shit? You know what I mean? Because you already have a cast of teenage characters. They're already kind of annoying asshats to begin with. To me, that spells slasher. Like that should be until
everything
gone.
Dawson's Creek should have been.
Dude, if they took like Archie comics and then the hack slash comics, and then just like decided to just make them do this a lot, and then they pumped out a baby, well, that'd be fucking great. By the way, this is sex, so you're learning on the Hate It podcast. What do mommy and daddy do?
They bump fists.
Not in the new Archie comics, buddy. That looks a little something like this.
No. It doesn't even look like that. It looks like this. It's like sumo wrestling.
And just like on the Hate It podcast, it's all leathery.
Yeah, that's two pan-gendered amoebas that identify as a fucking caribou.
So that's what it looks like whenever they reblog one another on Tumblr. That's weird. Never thought I'd see something like that recreated. Wonderful. Delightful.
Good grief. But you fuck Sony. Did I mention that?
Yes.
Huh? Okay. Okay.
By the way, I do want to point out one thing I do like a lot is that they got to wave that big old fucking Ghostbusters banner real high when they're talking about the reasons why things are taking a big fucking header.
Yes.
You're like, Ghostbusters!
That movie cost them so much fucking money, and they would not own up to how big a fucking bomb it was. They would not. It was like if your dog took a righteous diarrhea dump right on the floor, and it was like, what smell? What are you talking about? It smells like potpourri to me.
It's saying that after you slip, fall in it, and you're laying in it. What smell? What do you mean? You get up and do one of these. What smell? What chunks? Leave me alone.
Well, I mean, you think about it. Would you really be in a big hurry to admit you had anything to do with this? Not only did they fuck themselves, but they have single-handedly, with that stroke, absolutely sapped the drawing power of Sigourney Weaver, Bill Murray. Well, maybe not Bill Murray. Bill Murray can do whatever he wants. But Sigourney Weaver, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson are fucked. They have.
Oh man!
You say, "Hey, I was in Ghostbusters." You mean that shit? I'm sorry.
Okay, I know. I can understand foregoing the exercise in futility that is watching Ghostbusters, but I encourage everyone at home watching. Watch one of the interviews with the cast where Bill Murray was a member. I have never seen someone so readily exude like 40-carat sarcasm. Just mind-blowing how sarcastic and dismissive of this piece of shit he was. He so clearly thought this movie was fucking awful. And it's coming off him in fucking waves. Every single interview, he's like, his eyes are rolling like into his fucking forebrain. It's mind-blowing. But yeah.
You know, that's something that I might have to have like a playlist.
Oh, dude.
Bill Murray being sarcastic during Ghostbusters interviews, and I can just sit there with popcorn and be like, wonderful.
The passive-aggressive Bill Murray shit in those interviews is glorious.
I mean, again, we've got people in entertainment who think that if you take the ones who are just whining and you pander to them, that it makes everybody happy. Well, it didn't. It's a child throwing a tantrum. You gave them their way, and you got to see the end result. When the fuck any of them are going to learn?
Correction, you didn't see the end result. Most people didn't watch this fucking piece of shit.
So, that's quite true. I value my life slightly, so that's
the end result was a big pit.
Oh, dude, the end credits, seriously, the very last thing that flash on screen says, "Girls, you now owe your boyfriend some head." That was the very last thing.
That's what your girl power will get you. But I was trying to find a way to segue fucking Sony being fucking stupid and Michael Pachter. But Michael Pachter's running his mouth again. And we were talking about this on the program. That's when we decided that we were giving away too many good jokes and we got to get on here in front of you people. That's right, you people. And Michael Pachter was making some comments about the Xbox Scorpio, which Razor Fist, we had to spend 15 minutes just to explain to him. And he knows what video games are. So imagine this trying to be explained to people at Christmas time. Yeah. But there's the Xbox Scorpio coming out, and Mr. Pachter did have some comments about 4K gaming, which is apparently going to be the next stage, because we already found out this holiday, VR wasn't going to save the day.
No.
It's turned out to be a real expensive way to have some fun. Nothing wrong with that. So are hookers, just so you know. But he brought up an interesting point, and I'm not going to say it was a good point, but an interesting point about how 4K gaming seems to be the future. And I agree with this. I don't really know anyone who has a 4K TV that didn't get it on sale, first and foremost. And that raises an interesting point about where we're going in terms of video gaming. We've talked about it on this program on the past, that graphics aren't everything. But, you know, Alpha Omega, you had a lot to say on the subject.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we all remember when they announced the Scorpio and Xbox One S. The Xbox One S was taking the place of the regular Xbone. So now we had a 4K Xbox One, but it only played 4K movies.
Yeah.
So there was that. But this was going to be the new Xbox One, so that went and that rolled out. It did well. The Scorpio, on the other hand, was showcased as something technically next generation. And when you break down the specs, it is. It is a fucking monster. Make no mistake, it is a fucking monster. And people out there in the PC gaming world, we always end up scoffing at the notion that anything in console gaming is a fucking monster, because let's be real, our PCs are ever-evolving machines that can always crank out something bigger, badder, and better. But this is still fucking insane.
Yeah.
So Microsoft was going headlong behind us, and it's coming out this year. I'm safely assuming it'll be sometime like this holiday season, fall time.
Yeah.
And this is going to end up giving you true 4K gaming. Meanwhile, we're still getting some development studios who are just like, man, 1080p, huh? Really? I don't know. That's going to be a tough one right there. And I've asked numerous different times online, how many motherfuckers out there have a 4K television? And a lot of them don't. Keep in mind that if we go into the Wayback Machine, the same kind of questions were being asked to people who had tube televisions who didn't see the point of converting over to getting an LCD flat panel television.
Yeah. Oh, well, and after that, remember when 3D televisions were going to be a wave of the future? Hey, you remember that? Remember that? I vividly remember the bonus round on game trailers with that fucking knob Jeff Keighley standing there with David Jaffe running his fucking little hobbit mouth about how 3D was the future, and in 2 years, everything in gaming will be 3D, and there's no going back because it's been forever established that now 3D is the future. An entire fucking episode of this, I beshit you not.
Good thing he never was around for the fucking Virtual Boy.
You know what's funny? Is that we've been doing this podcast long enough that we got to see 3D come and go.
Yes,
we did.
Now it might okay, this says a couple different things, so let's get it out of the way. One, we're fucking old. Two, 3D died just as quick as we said it would.
Yep.
So
a little quicker, if we're being perfectly honest.
I honestly
true.
thought
That's very true.
Keep in mind, I say all this while I have a PlayStation 3D display down literally right there. To be fair, I didn't buy it for its 3D. I bought it because it was a really nice $99 television display. Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with like a 24, 32 inch, whatever the fuck it is. And it looks like a PSP Go just without all the failure. Well, no, actually with the failure because it's 3D TV. Oh, well, I tried. But so 4K, do either of you have a 4K television at all?
No, but I will say this: they are a lot cheaper than HD TVs were at the beginning.
They are.
So I think I think the transition to 4K is going to be easier because
I think the transition to HD came about because it was already available, and let's face it, the shelf life on tube CRT monitors was much lower than what is available on modern HD TVs. Those are guaranteed to last. I shouldn't say guaranteed, that's improper to say, but will definitely last much longer than these tube TVs. And I think that's a lot of what the replacement came down to, is that TVs wore out, not necessarily upgrading. I think that people upgrading, is a subjective thing. And I don't. That's something that's gonna, I think, work against the manufacturer of 4K TVs. I really think so.
I feel like once you get down into the 300, 400 and lower range, people are just going to start buying them anyway because they just need a TV.
Oh, sure.
And it's like that's the most reasonably priced thing in the stores. We're not far from that with 4K TVs. We're actually there with 4K TVs to a large degree at certain stores. So I don't think it's quite as much of a leap as HD TV. HD TV took a little longer to adopt. I think this is going to be relatively quick and painless. We're talking less than 5 years, for 4K, because it's just a matter of it's not that expensive, so why not?
Oh, well, that I'll agree with you on. I will absolutely agree with you on that. But then we come to the issue of application. Somebody's got to make games that are going to take advantage of this, and that's going to require more powerful machines and more powerful development kits. And if you look at the state of gaming right now, budgets are maxed. We just got done talking about a whole fucking studio that spent 15 years on one goddamn game, spending millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And now we're expected that these people who were so fiscally responsible in years previous, that now they're going to work on these, on these newer machines, which are going to be more expensive to produce. My point is, they're not ready, and a jump in technology is not going to get them ready any faster.
No, I can agree with that. You look, PS4 and Xbox One have pretty nice high fidelity graphics. It doesn't quite approach PC. But if you play a modern PC game on ultra settings, I could see that on a 4K display. But how many of those games are not as good as your computer could actually render? There's a lot of games actually that are like that. And frankly, studios are pulling back from the precipice of technology a little bit just because it costs so goddamn much.
Well, look at the most popular games right now are on your Android phone, on your iPhone, with very simple graphics, because that's what's affordable, and those draw money like flies to shit. It's amazing.
For perspective, people, a cheap game in today's market costs about $10 to $20 million to make. That's fucking insanity. And on the more reasonable AAA end, Skyrim cost $81 million to make. Witcher 3 cost $80 million to make. Right? These games are really fucking expensive to make. You're for a regular AAA game that doesn't waste any money and for which development progresses relatively smoothly, you're already knocking on the door of $100 million standard.
And that's before you have to pay to fucking tell people about this goddamn thing.
Oh, fucking shit.
I mean, one of the things the Packer said, which he is right, and I won't say that all that fucking often, but
rarely is there an opportunity to do so.
No, there really isn't.
What if he loudly shouted, "I'm a fucking asshole"?
Then he'd be on the fucking Hate Bit podcast the very next week.
I could see Alpha giving it the old stamp of approval there.
I'd be okay with that. The parts in the Scorpio are going to be hard to manufacture, toss together for a cheap price without them taking a heavy loss on individual sales.
Yeah.
And one can argue that whenever you have your system get sold, you have other titles get bought with it, you get your Xbox One, live membership, you go and toss on there so people can have Games Gold and all that shit. And you bundle all that stuff together, so that makes up the difference. But the difference would still be hard to go and fill that gap, because we're talking about something that is going to be expensive. And if this comes out, because keep in mind that everybody's going to approach this with I'm buying a console mentality, not I'm buying a Lamborghini mentality. And that's how they would have to sell this, and it's going to be hard, because if they wanted a Lamborghini, they would have bought an expensive PC.
Yep, and that's the problem.
It's going to be a mess.
Well, and look, something's got to give here. You either got to rate, because think of it, $80 million for a AAA game that progresses smoothly in development, a regular AAA game. That's ridiculous. And then you factor in that video game prices really haven't gone up much in the last 15 years.
And those 15 years have not been kind to the American dollar.
No, sir. And you have multiple firms, and you have advertising firms to pay, and you have your publisher to pay. Everyone has to take a piece of the pie. GameStop has to be paid, the retailers, Amazon, whoever the fuck you are.
Health insurance for all these goddamn people.
Steam, all these goddamn third parties that have to get a little piece of that $60. So knowing that, I don't think it's quite as strange that we have like DLC and season passes and shit that are tacked on top. I mean, we basically have tacitly increased the price of a video game to like $100 and some odd dollars because of once you factor in the season pass, that's about what it comes out to.
Video games, like, interesting.
And that's why we're getting gypped on the DLC, by the way. That's why this shit is made during development, and then they just release it after the fact. You're basically giving them a free $40-$50 on that season pass.
Dude, I always thought it was interesting to go back and look at the price of systems and games, and then look at the trend of inflation, and then look at right now, and then compare. Because right now, our games, in terms of
they cost nothing.
Our games should, if we were going to say, oh yeah, everything stayed the same with inflation, our games should probably be like $200 a piece.
Yeah, at least.
And that's not even like, haha. No, that's very fucking real. And it's horrifying to think about. And the budgets of games, keep in mind that the video game industry is a completely different animal than it was in the 70s and 80s and even a good portion of the 90s. Now it's its own entity, and it has taken over the living room in a way that most people never thought imaginable. Even the gaming industry didn't foresee it getting as big as it did, which is why a lot of shit spun out of control. Now we're at an advent of a new resolution of 4K, even though that's not technically new. Anybody who's been using a powerhouse PC has had a 4K resolution available to them, and they're still toting that there's going to be like 8 and 12K resolutions for things right now. Like, that's what they're pushing. This shit hasn't even broken like 10% of homes, and they are talking about that shit. And it's always hardware companies who are trying to be ahead of the curve and always be like, yeah, people want to go and jump on it. Motherfuckers haven't even jumped on this yet. I still know people with a tube television. I don't even know how the fuck they function. And it's not the TVs, the people.
Yeah.
So the secret is the coat hanger antenna.
No, this past Christmas, I bought my father his first flat screen. he had a freaking tube television up until then.
Wait, was it a Zenith?
No, it was a Philips.
God damn, that's a long time ago.
See, the best shit about that is not this year, but last year. I had everybody pitch in because they never know what to buy my dad for Christmas. I was like, we'll just throw all of our money in and get him a great big fucking TV.
Nice.
So that's what we did. And what did he have? He had a fucking Samsung tube television. It was my old TV, which was technically, it was, and they're really hard to find. I don't think most people even know they exist, but it was a flat panel tube television that was 720p.
Yeah, you know what? I had the same.
I remember those. I had a girlfriend have
weird. My dad had I gave him my old television before that too. It was my old tube television. Many an original Xbox game fell to the mighty flat screen Philips.
Dude, I rocked that TV so much, and the only reason that it got replaced is because I went down there the one day to go visit him, and I was hanging out shooting a shit. And I look over, the fucking TV is like a bunch of different colors of green. And I'm like, what? So I asked him, like, how long has it been like that? Oh, I don't know, a couple weeks. I'm like, what the fuck why haven't you called?
I've just been running magnets across the front of it. I've just been,
Dude, I did that to my mom's television once, got my fucking ass beat bad because she used to go to bingo, and they had the little magnets on a stick, so you could pick up the bingo chips because they'd have the ones with metal on them. dude. And I was just like, wow, it's neat. It changes the color of it. And that was Alpha Omega Sin in 15 directions, folks. I earned every single one of those. I didn't know though, but it just like, but nowadays we've got people who are still transitioning. I mean, you can still go to a store and find a 720p flat panel.
Yeah.
In the same store, you can find a 4K television. Right now, the display that I have in front of me is a 4K Samsung. In the living room, I have a 65-inch 4K Samsung.
Yeah.
And that's what I have in my house. Is it super necessary? More so in here, because I've actually done shit with my computer because it's a powerhouse PC. Yeah. And that makes sense for me. But I know a lot of folks, it's unnecessary because there isn't enough content out there to justify or warrant such a purchase. Yeah. And that's where the industry's right now. They're pushing hardware without anything to go along with it. And it's kind of tough.
Well, not only that, they've created a beast that cannot be fed.
Yeah.
The machine that they are is running out of a consumer base to support it. Their foundation is deteriorating. I'm not saying that it's dead. It's not going away. We're all here. These folks are all here. But it's a matter of when an arms race, such as the one during the Cold War in the 1980s, reaches its apex, one side ultimately falls away. And militant people in times of peace often declare war against themselves. And that's what it seems like, is now that the game industry has become its own thing, it's a violent chemical reaction, and people who now need the money to pay for this development that they spent so much money on, and now they're stuck.
A little bit. Yeah, I feel like what we're going to be getting a lot on these 4K consoles is upscaled shit.
Yeah,
it really seems like there'll be a lot of that.
I feel like it's probably going to be more or less a PS4 game that you just upscale to a higher resolution, put a blur filter on it, you know, get a little nice antiscopic feeling. The filter, whatever the fuck. The filter they put on the goddamn thing.
I'm just curious with the Scorpio coming out, because I've heard when the Pro came out, before the Pro came out and the specs were released on it, I had seen nothing but an endless cackle echo across the internet, because those specs weren't up to par with the Scorpio, and they weren't. It's night and day. But they are also two completely different machines. I said that the Pro was more akin to the Xbox One S. Nobody wanted to hear it. They said, no, this was their next generation thing. I'm like, well, then why the fuck would they release it now? There's really no difference. And same thing with the Xbox One S, but
I'll say this. I think it should be interesting to watch what happens with the Scorpio, because it'll tell us it'll tell us a lot about why the Wii U failed, I think. Because Wii U came out at a really fucking awkward time. Came out at like 2012. It was really more like the tail end of the last generation rather than the beginning of the next one.
Yeah.
And that was it just found itself smashed between those wheels. But one of the other problems it had was the anemic hardware compared to what came after. So I feel like if Microsoft aren't careful here, they could put because it's really easy for Sony to go, oh, those are nice Scorpio specs. Yoink! And then we'll put a few teraflops or whatever on top, and congratulations, now we win the day. So it'll be interesting to see if Microsoft, if the hardware is future-proofed enough to prevent Sony from doing that. Well, because Sony's not just going to sit with their thumb up their ass. If the Scorpio sits there and actually is successful, they will quickly move to one-up them in the hardware department, and they'll crank out a successor to the PS4.
See,
especially because sales are starting to fall off. I don't know. This really isn't a story that's been reported much, but sales for the PS4 have slowed a lot. I remember they were predicting, we're going to hit the 100 million threshold that the Wii hit sometime in 2016. Did not happen. It's somewhere around 50, 60 mil or
Is
so.
It really that high?
Yeah, they were expecting it to. I mean, they've been expecting for a long time. Oh, it's going to beat the Wii. It's going to beat the PS2. It hasn't happened yet because the sales for the PS4. I mean, there was a nice spike during holiday, like there always is. but they've kind of slowed on average.
Also, I think those people who say things like that think that people who bought the Wii were video game fans, and that was not the case.
Yeah, not at all. It was just the device of that holiday season. Basically.
It was absolutely,
and several after that.
See, I'm just wondering if they end up cranking out the Scorpio does well, assuming that's price point is a-okay, then what is this going to do for video game development? Are we going to be, because I know that they said that, well, your Xbox One games will work on the Scorpio. I'm hoping that they were smart enough to also include the continued 360 backwards compatibility that they continuously keep patching, to make sure that they work with it. If they do that, they have a machine that is technically future-proof to a degree, because it'll be able to play things well on into, forthcoming years, stuff that's out right now and things from the past. But if this doesn't do all that well, and you figure, look at when it's coming out. If this is like the next generation system, and you have the Switch coming out this year, and then you got the Scorpio coming out this year, and then Sony's pretty much sitting pretty where the fuck they're at right now, well into the fucking lead.
Yeah,
it becomes a fucking mess. So then you got people going, well, do I want to spend my money on this or that? And for all the Xbox One owners out there, are they going to be willing to forego whatever amount of money that they have just laying around to then upgrade and go get this, which many of them just upgraded and got an Xbox One S? So another one within this generation? It's just...
Yeah. Well, I feel like... Do you not feel like E3 is a big kind of question mark? Like, if they don't show... Because if at E3 you go, hey, look at the Scorpio, and then there's no games, like, what the fuck is coming out for this thing? Yeah. You have to have a reason to buy it, especially if it's a next-gen console. It's probably going to cost a bit. It's probably going to be $400, $500. You actually have to have some manner of incentive to buy it, and as the Wii U and many other kind of consoles that fell short have learned, games sell consoles.
Yeah.
Fucking period.
Well, Microsoft would have to... I mean, in truth, I think that they would be smarter to end up going and locking down exclusives through third parties, because Microsoft is so fucking lazy when it comes to first party, and they just happen. And anybody can be like, yeah, but what about, yeah, but what about, yeah, but what about, and yeah, what about their competition that fucking smokes them?
Yeah.
Like, literally. I like Microsoft a whole fucking lot. I have a lot of Microsoft products, but when it comes to their games division, shit's kind of questionable.
Yeah, it's sad because I've talked about this many times. It's sad because they used to have a really impressive stable of first-party games that was like carried over from the great games they made on PC. You know, you had BattleTech games, and you had MMOs, and you had all kinds of badass shit. Age of Empires, but then in the late 2000s, when the 360 got really fucking high on the hog and really fucking lazy, it just at a certain point it was like, oh, we have Fable and nothing else. Fantastic. There are some building blocks for success. Hey, where's the Fable series these days, by the way?
It's funny. I was just talking about that because I got Fable Anniversary Edition, and I was like, and I could give a fuck less about the rest. Yeah, go with that. And again, that does say something about the company as a whole. But if they bring this out, it costs too fucking much. It's going to end up hurting the value of the brand. And Microsoft, they have a cool brand. The Xbox is a cool brand for Microsoft, which has had a hard time trying to go and like giving itself a distinctive identity, especially going up against the likes of Apple. And Apple has fucking spanked the shit out of them when it comes to marketing, despite the fact that I'll always and forever consider them to be an inferior company. But that's a story for a different time. Still,
an entirely different podcast.
If this shit comes out and it's too fucking expensive, it will fail. Make no fucking mistake. And I'm not saying that people won't buy it. People bought the fucking PS3 and that thing was $600 fucking dollars. And then it just fucking sat there.
Yeah.
And then it got Netflix.
Oh yeah. People are also using the fucking Wii for Netflix. I can't figure that one out at all.
Still.
Yeah, but you needed the disc.
Yeah.
You need a Netflix disc. That's so fucking weird. So goddamn weird. 2006. I love you. But again, the Scorpio, like, I think 4K gaming is inevitable because it's just part of an evolution. It's not a gimmick like 3D gaming because it's just a matter of things will look nicer. That's all. Things will just eventually look nicer. Our displays are going to continuously keep on getting better looking. I'm excited for that. But is it going to happen right now? I'd have to agree with you guys. In 5 years' time, I see a lot of people going and jumping ship because it has been getting cheap as fuck lately. I mean, this past holiday season was probably one of the best times for you to go and pick up one of those sets.
Oh yeah,
you were seeing them go for like you could get. I know for a fact I had seen like good brand. I'm talking like LG, Samsung, Sony, and shit. 55-inch sets, 4K, going for like $600.
Yeah,
and that's 4K.
It's only gonna get cheaper for there. And the bigger the screens are, the more attractive it is to buy and so forth. And so, I think it is inevitable. You're gonna wind up with 4K. It's just a question of whether or not gaming is gonna follow suit because of the cost.
I feel like with the Scorpio right now, Microsoft's in a position that they're doing well with just the Xbox brand. And even though people would bitch and complain, but I wouldn't release it this year. I really wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
I feel that it's a bad time because you're going up against the Switch, and people can sit there and fucking laugh and be amused by something like that. But no matter what, that's competition. You're going up against Sony, who has been fucking crushing you. And you're going and competing against yourself. That's the biggest kicker of all.
Well, not only that, is you guarantee you're now going to cut your available shelf space at every retailer in half because you're still going to have to devote half of that to the Xbox One. And then you're going to have to explain to Grandma and Grandpa at Christmas time, what the fuck is this other white thing?
Yeah. It's one of those things of when you talk about splitting the shelf space, one, I'm glad that you brought that up because look at it like this. You walk into a store. Let's say that you only give a shit about an Xbox. Okay, you go in. Now we've got the Xbox One S. Now we have the limited edition Xbox One S. We have the Xbox One S that's a bundle package. We have the Scorpio. Now we have a Scorpio with a bundle. That turns into a goddamn nightmare. And again, you're just competing against yourself. And how the fuck do you win at that point? You don't.
You don't.
You lose.
So that's a terrible shame. But, in the spirit of leading things with a high note, for those of you that dislike Microsoft, they're going to lose some money this year. So good for you. Good for you people. But anyway, we've taken up enough of your time. We thank you very much for stopping by. That's it. That's the Hate Bit Podcast for this week. We thank you very much. I want to remind everybody to check us out on the social media right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that sort of thing. I want to remind you also that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please drop us a line at hatebitpodcast@gmail.com. Joining me has been the ghost of a beard of Razor Fist.
My question is, who got the bright idea to name the new Xbox console after the serial killer from Dirty Harry? God fucking Spade.
And of course, the man made of facial hair, Alpha Omegason.
I am a Katamari of facial hair. Go play Yakuza 0 because that's what I'm doing right now. Or don't, because what else are you going to be playing? Fuck off. Love you.
Thank you very much. Good night, and finger for all of you. And by the way, my nail polish was gray. Good night.